Judge Gerrard, thank you so much for taking some time to meet with us to discuss your role as a federal judge.
You are welcome.
We're pleased to have you represent the United States District Court as the Chief Justice of the District Court of Nebraska. So we wanted to add your voice, your perspective, and a little bit of an introduction to your role to our virtual Capitol experience.
Great.
So high schoolers, middle schoolers, and beyond could really understand what a federal judge does on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent.
Okay, so a couple of questions for you. Feel free to add how you wish, but when did you become a federal court judge? And is it an appointment or an elected seat?
Yes, that's a good question. Before I became a federal judge, I actually served for 16 and a half years on the Nebraska Supreme Court. I was an appellate court judge, and at that time, in 1995, I was appointed by then Governor Ben Nelson to serve on the Nebraska State Supreme Court, and that's a little different position than I hold now, and we can talk about that later. But I was nominated by President Barack Obama in 2011 to serve on the Federal District Court. That's actually the nomination right behind me. But I was confirmed by the United States Senate. So what happens is the President of the United States nominates you, and then the Senate has to confirm you. They give their advice and consent pursuant to the United States Constitution. And so I was confirmed, and I began my service on the Federal District Court in February of 2012.
So I imagine then there was a hearing that you had to go in person for in front of the United States Senate.
There was a hearing in front of the United States Senate, and it's the Judiciary Committee, so there were about 10 of the United States senators that were there at the hearing, and that's always fun to do. They ask you questions about the Constitution, and you answer those questions and engage with the senators, and that was a fascinating experience.
I was just gonna say, it seems like you're the right fit for this job when you describe it as fun and not as nerve-wracking, as I think many folks would feel.
Well, at that time, as I said, I had been a judge for about 16 years, and I love the law. That's why I do this, and I love the Constitution. And so when I was engaging with senators, we were talking about the parameters of what a trial judge would do, the limitations that we have, the three branches of government, and how each of them are important, but they're separate. And it's important for a judge to understand those separation of powers. And so I love to engage anybody, including high school students, United States senators, or anybody in between that wants to talk to me about the Constitution.
That's wonderful. Wow, it sounds like, again, you're the right fit for the office. Okay, so when you first thought about serving in this role, either on the Supreme Court appellate side or in this particular judgeship, where did you start? What path did you set out upon to get here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before I was ever a lawyer, I was actually a probation officer up in Norfolk, Nebraska. And so as a probation officer, I worked with clients. They had committed a crime, and they were placed on probation. I worked with both adults and juveniles, many high school students, and that was actually a fascinating job. But while I was working as a probation officer, there was a district judge in Norfolk that was really a mentor and a role model to me. His name was Judge Merritt Warren, and I thought if I ever had the opportunity, I would love to do that. I mean, he very much saw the law as a place in which you provide an even playing field. Neither side has any advantage, whether it be the government or an individual defendant. The facts are presented as they are, and you render judgment, or a jury renders judgment. And I thought, wow, that's what I'd like to do. And so after that, I went on to law school, and I was a practicing lawyer up in Norfolk, Nebraska for about 15 years before I was appointed to the Nebraska Supreme Court bench. And so that was kind of my path.
That's wonderful. Was it private practice, or were you a public prosecutor or defender?
No, it was private practice. And so about half of my practice was representing criminal defendants, and the other half of my practice was civil work. I tried lawsuits primarily, both in the criminal practice and in civil practice. So I was I was a trial lawyer.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you've seen from being a probation officer to being a trial lawyer to now being a judge. You've seen a wide swath of the judicial branch.
I've
then.
seen both sides of the bench.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So let's go to kind of your primary responsibilities as a judge or as a chief justice as well as you are. Is there a typical day, or what makes up a judgeship on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis?
Well, the thing I like about being a federal trial court judge is no day looks the same, okay? And so in the weeks that you have a jury trial, I conduct the jury trial and I'm in court literally all day, from 8:30 to 4:30, and then I do my other duties either before that or after that. Mm-hmm. And that's the favorite part of my job is to conduct jury trials, work with jurors, watch how lawyers try their cases, et cetera. And so that's a fascinating part of my job. The other portion of my job, when I'm not in trial, I'm still in court. I will do sentencings. A major part of my job is to sentence individuals after they've been convicted. I also, about 50% of my caseload now is civil, and so I'll have motion hearings. So that's roughly half and half of my job. So the other portion of my job are some of the more mundane administrative tasks. Mm-hmm. So I will issue warrants, I do wiretaps, and then also just my administrative functions. For example, when the COVID crisis came about, we had to decide when we were going to shut down jury trials. When we started jury trials again, who could come into the federal courthouse and wear masks and distance and things like that. So those aren't as much fun, but they are
necessary.
They are an important part of the job that goes along with this.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, someone has to do the job, and it sounds like you're up for it. So, I want to pivot a little bit. You had mentioned that you were a part of the Nebraska Supreme Court branch and on the appellate court. Could you tell us a little bit, or talk about the differences between that state judicial branch and the federal judicial branch that you're a part of now, and maybe what distinctions that creates for your job and the cases that you oversee?
Yeah, sure. Actually, if you're a trial judge, there's not a lot of difference between a federal trial judge and a state court trial judge. There's a little bit of difference in the type of cases that we take. Sure. In the federal courts, we have a lot of cases that determine constitutional issues, for example, but we also administer the federal statutes, criminal statutes, so we will have robbery and drug cases and all kinds of cases that state court judges handle also. The primary difference between my job now as a trial judge and when I was an appellate court judge is, as a trial court judge, you actually try the cases. You give the jury instructions, you sentence individuals. There's a lot of contact with the public and with jurors, et cetera. As an appellate court, that record has already been made. So the trial has been had, you've rendered your sentence or whatever, and then when you appeal the case up to the appellate court will read the briefs, and there's usually an issue of law or an issue that involves the Constitution that you have to decide. And so you read briefs, you have oral arguments, the lawyers. Speaking of being nervous, when you go as a lawyer, you go before the appellate court, and there are 7 Supreme Court judges, staring down the bench like this at you, and so as an appellate court, then you write opinions that decide the case, but they also set precedent for the future. So I don't know if you can see all the books over there, but that's so those are cases that are written by the appellate courts, and so we are governed by that. As a trial court judge, if an issue comes before me, let's say it's a constitutional issue, I will read cases that occurred before that are similar to those cases.
Do you read then the Nebraska appellate court decisions, or because we're in the District of Nebraska, or do you have to source from other states as well?
That's a great question. So if you're in the state court, you read the Nebraska Supreme Court opinions. That's what guides you. If you're on the federal court, we are what's called in the 8th Circuit. So there are 6 states that are in the 8th Circuit, and so the 8th Circuit cases govern us as well as the United States Supreme Court. But a lot of times there's an issue that'll present itself that hasn't been decided by the Eighth Circuit, and so then you can go outside to the other circuit decisions to determine how you're going to decide the case.
Sure, to kind of cross-check some of that.
And sometimes there is no law at all. Okay. And
what
so
an exciting path!
so then you have to decide the case based on the statute and in the closest that you can come as far as the law is concerned.
Interesting. Just a fascinating branch of government.